Hello, this video is on the nature of biological communities. My name is Carlos Franco Sperber. I am a teacher at the Federal University of Viçosa. What will we see in this video? We will see what are biological communities, what's diversity, what is community structure, and applications of what we saw. Bibliography, Essentials of Ecology of Begon, Haworth and Townsend, Chapter 10, Chapter 16 and 21 of Begon, Townsend and Harper's Ecology from Individuals to Ecosystems, Chapter 8 of Community Ecology of Mittelbach and McGill, and Anne McGuchan's Measuring Biological Diversity. What are biological communities? Communities are sets of populations of different species that co-occur in a given site. The species of a community can interact with each other or not. Currently, the meta-community is considered, in which local communities are connected by migration of individuals. Some questions of community ecology. What is the relative importance of neutral random processes versus ecological interactions in ecological communities? What are the drivers of species diversity in communities? Why do some places have more species than others? What characteristics lead to the predominance of competition and partitioning of resources or predation or of chance in the structuring of communities? So Forth and collaborators published an article simplifying the jargon of community ecology, proposing some definitions. They proposed that at a geographical approach point of view, we can call communities as the set of species of some geographical delimitation. From the resources point of view, we understand communities as related to those species that consume the same or similar resources. This constitutes the guilds. And from the phylogenetic perspective, that means from the evolutionary history perspective, we can consider communities by the set of taxa of a given common ancestor. When we make the interception of communities and guilds, we find local guilds. The intersection of communities and taxa is the assemblage, the set of species of a given taxa and of that co-occur in a place. The combination of communities, guilds, and taxa creates the ensembles, which are communities that have all these things in common. The community structure may be comprehended, may be understood as the set of collective properties of a community, which are the species richness, which is the same as the species number, species composition, which species are there, or their similarity. We can transform species composition into a number when we consider the similarity among communities, equitability, uniformity or evenness of a community, dominance, which is the opposite, the exact opposite of equitability or uniformity, the diversity indices, and the relative abundance distributions or relative abundance curves. Let's see each of these separately. First, species richness is the number of species. Species composition is which are the species that occur there. Species similarity is a measure of quantification of species composition. What is the proportion of species in common between two or more communities? Equitability or uniformity is the reverse of dominance. How similar are the species abundances among species in the same community? Diversity indices is the combination, is an index that combines species richness and equitability. And the abundance curves are a manner to analyze the distribution of abundances or the number of species in classes of abundance within one community. Which are the applications of the community properties? We can use them to compare communities. We can use them to assess community response to environmental disturbances. We can assess ecological succession. We can inform about stability in face of disturbances. And we can evaluate the impact of human activities on communities. The collective properties of biological communities may be seen as the accumulated abundance. We will call this the summation of all individuals. The species richness, or the number of species. Equitability, or the similarity of abundance of species between species within a community. The dominance is the difference in abundances between species. The diversity is the combination of richness and equitability. And composition, which are the species of this community. We make here an exercise comparing communities. I here have four invented communities, which I call A, B, C, and D. And this species A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Communities A, B, and D have the same species composition. That means they have the same species, while community C has the species A, B, and C present, the species D and E and F absent, and species G present. So we will evaluate the accumulated abundance of these communities, the species richness, the equitability, the dominance, the diversity, and their composition. So, accumulated abundance, we sum the individuals of species A, B, C, D, etc. This gives a total of 1,000 individuals for community A, 960 for community B. We don't know for community C because we don't have this information, and 991 individuals for community D. The species richness for communities A, B, and D is 7 because there are 7 species in their communities, in these communities, while at community C we have only 4 species present, which are species A, B, C, and G. On equitability, without making any calculations, we can see that the equitability of community B is larger. Why? Because these 960 individuals are more equally distributed among species. Look that the most abundant species in community B is much less abundant than that in community A and in community D, although the number of individuals is very similar. While the abundance of the less abundant, the more rare species in community A are of 1 individual or 3 individuals, while in community B they are much more abundant. The rare species are more abundant. That's why we conclude that community B has the largest equitability or the largest evenness, and community A has the lowest dominance or the lowest equitability or the highest dominance, because most individuals are concentrated in a single species, species A, while rare species have very little abundances, very small abundances. So we have equitability B followed by D, followed by A. We don't know about community C because we don't have information on species abundance. And dominance is exactly the opposite. It's highest on A and lowest on community B. While diversity is a combination of both species richness and species evenness or equitability. In this specific case, where species richness is exactly the same for communities A, B, and D, we can say that diversity equates with equitability, because diversity combines species richness and equitability. Therefore, the diversity is larger on community B and lowest in community A. Here is an observation. We know it because species richness is just the same for all these three communities. If it was not the same, we would have to calculate it. Composition, we see that communities A, B, and D have the same species composition because they have the same species, while community C is a subset of communities A, B, and D. That's why I'm using this set symbol of mathematical symbol. Okay, community C is contained within communities A or B or D in relation to species composition. That's because although we don't know the species abundances, we know that in C there is only a subset of the species present in A, B, and D.